Are you an adventurer looking to take your hunt to the next level? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to East Meets West Hunt with your host, Beau Martonik.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the East Meets West Hunt podcast presented by onX. The onX Hunt app is your premier GPS hunting app that turns your mobile phone right into a GPS. And this time of year, using onX to hunt big woods, mountain bucks, I'm using it almost every day. And I'm doing that by looking at the weather. They have the weather on there. They have being able to look at my potential stand locations, where I'm planning on going into. It's getting that time of year when I'm constantly reviewing maps and trying to figure out what my game plan is going to be going into the next day. So if you want to check out the onX Hunt app, head over to onxmaps.com and use the coupon code EMW, and that'll save yourself 20% off of the app. And Elk 101, so Corey Jacobson has put together the most comprehensive elk hunting learning course available, and that's called the University of Elk Hunting. If you want to learn everything from the beginning to end, from the planning stages, from the budgeting down to getting in shape for the hunt, every little detail that comes into elk hunting is all in one course. And you can view that without not having to search through the internet. Everything's there, from years and years of elk hunting knowledge to be able to help you be more successful in planning and hopefully succeeding in your hunt. So if you want to check that out, head over to elk101.com and use the coupon code eastmeetswest. That'll save yourself 20% off of a 1-year membership to the online course. And last but not least, Tethered. So Tethered has been developing the lightest weight mobile hunting gear out there, and they're doing that while creating safe products and being able to just continue to innovate and push other companies in the industry, and just trying to really push to try to start making lighter and lighter stuff. And I've been hunting out of my saddle now for a little over a year, and I don't have any plans to use any fixed stands this year. So it's pretty incredible for me to make that sort of a shift, but I'm really, really enjoying it. So head over to tetherednation.com and check that out. Jared from Tethered will be here this week with me doing some filming and hunting for the Tethered's YouTube channel. So be sure to check that out for some Pennsylvania pre-rut action, hopefully. And so before I jump into this episode, which is a Q&A episode, I said I was going to do another one with the pre-rut questions, and so that's what I'm here to do. But I did want to mention that I did have a new YouTube video up going through my entire gear list for hunting the pre-rut here in Pennsylvania. My whole mobile hunting setup, what's in my pack, what I'm wearing, going through all that. So I have that on my YouTube channel, which is just under Beau Martonik. Or if you head over to eastmeetswesthunt.com and click on the journal tab, you can see I did a whole article with all the items listed out there, and also a link to the video in there, so that might be the easiest place for you to find it. But in that list, I have everything listed out with links to the products and why. So if you say you want to order something there that was from Amazon or whatever else, if you do use the link that I have provided there, that does help me out quite a bit. I do make a small commission off of those links and those codes, so I really appreciate it. If you think it's helpful and you want to buy one of those products, check that out. That would be really, really helpful from my standpoint. But other than that, I'm just getting ready. When this comes out, it'll be my last day of work for the week, and hunting from October 28th through the 31st here with Jared from Tethered, as I had mentioned. And the weather's looking ideal. I mean, bucks are moving right now. When I was going in to hunt Saturday, although I got skunked on my morning hunt, I saw probably a mid 140s 10 point with a doe right along the road in this new cut, and everyone was just seeing bucks on their drive in, and it was just, it's starting to really heat up. I think it's only going to get better from here, and that's what I'm excited about. But yeah, my hunt Saturday was I was going in I had two spots to go to. One I thought was a higher odds of killing a buck, but the one I ended up going to is higher odds of, I guess, killing a really, really good buck, or I guess a great buck, my target one. But I kind of had it in my head. It was the spot's like, I'm either going to kill him or I'm not going to kill anything. And that's what happened. I did have a coyote come in that he came in behind me at 15 yards, and it was kind of off the off side of the weak side, they call it in the saddle. And I twisted and I got on him, and I started to draw, and I caught my broadhead on a little branch that was coming out of the beech tree behind me, and just banged off my riser. I mean, I literally have all my riser wrapped in moleskin besides one spot that it fell off, and it hit that, and the coyote took off. I went to full draw, but I couldn't get him to stop, so that was about it. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this week. So this episode, I'm going to go through some more, like I said, Q&A questions about pre-rut ruts. So this came directly from you guys, these questions, and I'm going to answer them the best of my ability. Again, as I said in the last time I did this, I'm not an expert in this. This is what I've just done my entire life. This is the way I would make decisions based on these things. That does not an end-all, be-all. So take that with a grain of salt, and don't, well, Beau told me to do this and it didn't work. Well, yeah, it probably won't. No, I hope that some of these things in my perspective here can help you out a little bit. So I guess we can see. So the first question here is to explain your thoughts on hunting the upper 1/3 of the hill versus the creek bottom. So kind of run through that as a pre-rut, rut, and kind of getting into a little bit after the rut there. So the way that I would explain that is this is 110% terrain based. I'm not hunting creek bottoms everywhere. Creek bottoms are very specific to me, to areas that have, whether that's a bigger creek bottom, say more of more flat terrain in it, not where like two ridges come down and almost spike to a little stream. That doesn't work. The winds swirl too much for me to be able to do that. But if you get one that might be steep to hit that bottom, but you have a little bit of a flat going across, maybe some swampiness, beaver pond there, you have a better chance of some consistent winds to stay there. So that's when I'm focused on, the creek bottoms, and I'm mostly focused on them in the pre-rut. I'm focusing on if I can find a giant hemlock scrape that has, so a hemlock's conifer tree, if I can find one of those that has multiple scrapes under it, just tore up, big community type scrape, I'll hunt directly over that in the pre-rut, as well as some of those kind of getting into some of those rut funnels, essentially places where there's a creek crossing, maybe on the edge of a beaver pond, that funnels the deer, or right towards the edge of the side hill where they might be running some thick cover. That all depends. And also with creek bottoms, I'm not hunting wide open creek bottoms. I'm hunting ones with thick cover. And because a lot of times I'll find the does bedded in those bottoms. I mean, it makes no sense if you're thinking too technical about it, and you're, looking at, oh, I've heard that the deer only bed up here, and that's not the case. The deer don't always do whatever you think they always do. I'm a person that tries to put things in rule of thumb, as far as, most of the time they might bed here, but that's very, very unlikely to be able to even think about that. So what I tend to do is look at every scenario different and kind of go from there. But that's my thought on, hunting the creek bottoms. I can hunt a creek bottom if there's big ridges on both sides, but they have to give enough space in the center for that wind to stay somewhat consistent. And most of the time I'll see that wind coming down the creek, especially if it's cold in the mornings. It's going to always come down the valley. And then you got the beaver pond. If you can set up with a beaver pond behind you, I've talked about this before, but you get that wind rushing down, and the beaver pond water is warmer than the air. And so what that's going to do is it's going to bring it up. So thermals are going to come up in the morning on those cold, frosty mornings, and you're honestly like almost it's almost impossible for the deer to get your wind at that point with the wind coming down, the regular, thermals coming down the creek and then hitting the thermals coming off that pond. It's just a really incredible thing if you can find a situation like that. But as far as hunting the upper third of the hill, so most of the time what I'm trying to do in that situation is get them cruising between, potential doe bedding areas. They don't not wanting to really run across the top, in a lot of places, especially if there's hunting pressure. So they're wanting to run just over the edge of the ridge and being able to check, say, some does that might be bedded a little bit lower. They might be doing that as the thermals are coming up the ridge, or maybe some of the does that even bed on the top. I've seen does, bed in the middle of oak flats on the top. They bed in like a circle so that they can see every direction. And even though they don't have the best wind advantage or anything along those lines, they can still see quite a bit, and they have the power of being with a bunch of people. So that really helps out. But those are kind of the two scenarios. But with the upper third of the hill, I'm focusing more on areas that are funneling deer down at this time of year. And that's, either going to be, it could be in some sort of a saddle off to one side or the other. And I'll usually off to the leeward side of the ridge. Or I could be hunting on a bench. So on a bench that would run across the side of a mountain, and also a draw. So where there's a steep ravine going up right where that starts to flatten out a little bit, where you'll probably see good trails coming around there. I'm just trying to catch, deer in the optimum places they're cruising looking for does. But in the pre-rut, I'm focusing more on scrapes. I'm focusing super heavy on scrapes, which I do most of the year, but this is the time when these big community scrapes have potential to be hit by $3, $4, $5 a day, or you can see nothing. It's really up in the air what you're going to find with these low deer density areas. But if there's a hot doe in the area, or a bunch of does that they're coming in the check, it could be really, really money. So another question I got was, do you rattle mountain bucks during the rut? I do and I don't. I actually don't even have a set of rattling antlers right now. I could take some sheds and make one, but I lost mine from last year, and I just don't really use them much. I mean, maybe last ditch kind of effort, but I've never killed a buck from rattling one. It seems like a lot of times when I do rattle, they come in and they try to come in downwind. They try to circle me. And it doesn't happen as much with grunting, but the one thing that I've learned even with grunting or bleeding is, if you're in any sort of an area that has, I'm kind of jumping to a slightly different topic here, but if you have like an opening or something in front of you, and say you blind call and one's coming in, they're going to come to the edge of that opening, staying in the thick stuff, and look out for that deer before they come just barreling out. And so that at that point, decoys can be really effective at that time with being able to pull them. And so that was another question that was in here, was, do you use decoys in the Pennsylvania wilds? And I do. I use those Montana two-dimensional decoys. Sometimes I'll just use the doe. Other times I'll use the doe and like a little 4-point buck. So I use both of those, and that's been really helpful in cases of, like I just said, when you're blind calling and you're trying to get them to commit the extra way. But when you have the two-dimensional decoys, sometimes you can run into some issues where they get directly behind it, and then the deer disappears because it's two-dimensional and they freak out. But I don't know. I feel like I've had more positive experiences than negative with decoys. So I will use those. Like I said, the Montana ones are just, they fold up real small and put them on the outside of my pack. Literally weigh nothing. So you can check it out. I have it in the blog post for my gear list. You can check it out there. I have links to the ones that I bought, so you can take a look at those. And next question is, do you focus on rub lines, and is it worth it? I don't focus much on rub lines. I mean, what I focus on rub lines is if I start finding a concentration of rubs, looking to see if it's, related to bedding, or if it's just random rubs. But one of the things that, like this year, I'm focused on, I found I found a big signpost rub in the spring in a new area. And so I went back in to check that out around October 9th or 10th. And I saw that signpost is freshened up. And then there was a bunch of other big rubs right there along this ridge, just over the edge from the top, and some thick hemlock cover. So this is the first time I think it's the first time I've done this, threw camera right on that signpost rub. And within 10 hours, I had the buck I was hoping to get come in and check that out. I sprayed some of the forehead gland on the branch above, almost like a licking branch of a scrape, and then right on the rub. So I took the Buck Fever Synthetics stuff that I got and that I used for all my scrapes, and I just sprayed that on it, and it was pretty cool to be able to see him come in. He did notice my camera, and I don't know if he's been back since. So that's kind of a risk you take with it, but it was cool to see that's what that was. But he did come through at like 4 a.m, so it wasn't in daylight or nothing. I don't know what the significance of hunting that outside of, or I guess I don't know the significance of hunting rub lines. I haven't done it much. I know Greg Litzinger focuses on those quite a bit, and I want to get him on to talk specifically about rubs at some point. And then the next question was about, do you hunt rubs and scrapes? And yes, I do hunt scrapes most of the time. As I mentioned before, I'm looking for, community type scrapes. I'm looking for those big scrapes, not the testosterone driven scrapes. You can go down a logging road and find 15 scrapes down it here, and that doesn't mean that's going to be the greatest, spot that they're going to come back to it. Sometimes that buck will leave that and never even revisit it. I like to look for the stuff close to bedding, whether that's buck bedding or even closer to doe bedding now at this time of year, or in between it in those travel areas where there's just a bunch of deer coming through that one section. So highly recommend, taking a look at that, and that's kind of some of the stuff I do with scrapes. And then, so the next question was, when hunting hillsides, do you prefer the south side? And my answer would be yes, I do, but mostly it's south and east sides, just because that most of our predominant winds during this time of year when I'm trying to hunt, which is typically during colder weather, you're looking at northern and westerly winds. So that just makes sense where that's the side that they're going to be traveling on. You got the wind coming across the top hill. On that side, they're most likely going to be bedded over on those south and east facing slopes. So a lot of times I will set up in those places when possible. That's not like my end all be all. I won't not set up on a western slope or a northern slope. That's not the case at all. I actually have a spot this week I might set up that's a western slope. We got some east winds coming in, so that's one of the things that I'm definitely gonna pay attention to there. But so that's kind of. But with hunting hillsides, I do prefer the south and east slides. I did a podcast back in March with Nathan Killen. It's my most popular episode I've ever done, and for good reason. Definitely listen to that one as he talks real in detail about his thoughts on south and east facing slopes, and it is money to listen to. So check that out. How do bucks work below benches and below points when traveling? So they don't like to be skylined a lot of times, or don't want to have the pressure, the human pressure on the tops. I've definitely seen bucks in the rut on a wide open top before. But for the most part, they like to be just below the benches or below points when they're traveling. Even sometimes they're not going to even on a nice bench on the side of a hill where there's still some cover. Sometimes they'll still walk just above the bench or below it on a weird, side hill trail. But I find that they let the guard down a little bit more this time of year in the pre-rut rut, and they'll walk some more of those main trails that they might not the rest of the year. So I'm really trying to focus not really on the hidden spots, but some of the main travel areas. And plus, I've also seen just deer don't use trails at all during the rut. They'll just come from anywhere in any direction, do whatever they want. See bucks just pounding through some just thick stuff, no trails, and so trying to set up with the best possibility that I can have there. Next question is, when going in deep, do you prefer to go in at dark or very early versus waiting to sneak in at first light? So I'm going to go into a lot of detail on this question with Jason Red, who I just had on the podcast. He'll be coming out in the next episode here, and we talk a lot about that, with especially going in the new areas. But I prefer to go in at the dark, being in setup before light. But when it's the rut, I don't think it really matters as much. A lot of times I'll hunt my way in, right at first light, especially if I can get an extra hour of sleep after hunting for 4 days, dark to dark. That just helps your mental game so much more in staying on it. And I'd rather be able to sit all day and maybe not be in the stand for the first 45 minutes or half hour of, first light. I don't know. I think it's the end of October here, like we're in right now. I like to be in before first light, but as you get into November, I don't think it's as important. I've personally never killed a buck at first light and during this time of year. So that's my thought process, but look for that episode to come out here. I might actually even release it still this week and have 2 come out. Look at that, because there's a lot of good information there when it talks about what our thought process is with doing that. But the last thing I just want to say on this is, I don't like to, if I'm going to a brand new area, I'm not really having a tree picked out, I'd rather wait until I can see a little bit and pick the right tree rather than just setting up in a tree that I can't see or do anything once it gets light. Next one is, when hunting timber cuts, how do you hunt them during November, and utilizing terrain features, or how am I doing that? So timber cuts, does love to bed in timber cuts as well as bucks do. So there's 2 thought processes on this that I have. Most of it has to do with hunting the edges of the timber cuts, where they say meet big timber or meet dark timber or whatever it is. Hunting those areas, you would typically find rub lines, scrape lines along those outsides. And the does and the bucks will bed on the outside so they can see out in that open timber, but have all the cover and security behind them. So that's one of the thought processes that I have. And if I can find any terrain features that butt up against those edges, say a draw comes up, but right at the top is where that cut starts. That's a perfect spot that's in there. I had a spot last year that I hunted where I had a little draw come up, and there was only like 40 yards across that top before I hit a thick, nasty clear cut. And there was like some oaks and cherries that were mixed in that spot. I mean, it's just a money spot to set up and, spend a few days in during that rut funnel. So those are the type of things I'm looking for there. Or getting in the interior of those timber cuts. So some of those older cuts that might be 15, 20 years old, some of them that are actually even, 3 to 10 years old. If you can get in where some of the logging trails cross, in the center where you got some multiple trails crossing, that's mostly using the vegetation as far as features there to try to figure it out. But getting on the interior of those cuts can be great. I found that being on the interior, you don't typically see a whole lot of deer, but you could definitely, if you are patient, see the right one by doing that. Next question is, does the moon play a role in your hunts? It does not to me. I don't focus on the moon really at all. I look at it, I hear people talk about it, and if someone tells me it's supposed to be a good week for the moon, might get me a little bit more pumped up, but I haven't looked into it enough to say if I think it's an advantage or not. Like, I haven't looked at my own data or looked back and been like, oh, this is correlated to this. So I can't really, I don't feel educated enough to comment on that question. Next one is, this one's a good one. I like these types. What is your preferred snack or food to take in the stand? So I take a lot of snacks and foods in the stand. And so list of some things that I take in. Trail mix. I love trail mix. Is something about things I can eat, a bunch of, just continually kind of munching on that. The new Mountain Ops protein bars. The caramel crunch is like a Snickers bar, but a lot better for you, I guess, and they're really filling, so I'll take those in. I started using those this year because they just came out and really like those, so those will definitely be an all-day rut sit favorite. And then Heather's Choice Packaroons, awesome. Highly recommend with all these things, though, take them out of their original packaging and put them in a Ziploc bag, because the original packaging is loud as shit. And it's just, when on a cold morning, you just don't want to hear the crinkling of your bags there. And then lastly, if I have any sort of deer jerky or summer sausage or something along those lines, if I can have that in there, that's probably the cat's meow with it. And then lastly, I always like to have a big Yeti full of coffee. So having big thing of thermos of coffee in there is again a mental boost. When it's super cold and you just open it up and that steam hits you in the face, I can't think of anything better, honestly. So those are my preferred snack food items. I usually take more in, but it depends on what I have available, I guess, at that time to be able to eat. Next question is, do you urinate out of the tree? Yes, I do. I do not bring a bottle in to piss in. I always go out of the tree. That really sucks on them cold, frosty mornings because it is extremely loud. But I do not worry about the scent with it, because actually when I'm going in, if I have to walk by, say, the scrape or whatever I'm hunting, I always piss in that myself. I have not seen where urine is something that deters them from a smell standpoint. I can see it being an issue with sound, especially like I said on loud leaves and stuff, and that's, I haven't been, I don't think I can remember being busted doing that, but I could see how you could be. So I guess that would be a good argument against it, but I just don't like carrying an extra bottle in to go through that whole thing. Plus I have to go multiple times a day, so that's not going to really work out that well. And the last question I have is, what type of boots do you wear? And so I like to wear leather boots, and the reason is, even though it's worse for scent, I think that they breathe a lot better. If I'm hiking in a long ways, my feet don't sweat as much. So if my feet don't sweat, then they're not going to get cold when sitting on the stand. So for me, I'm wearing, during this colder type pre-rut, I have crispy boots. They're 400 gram of insulation, and they're the Wild Rock, the specific model, and I wear those in, lightly insulated but breathable enough. Get to my stand, I throw on my hot mocks, they're completely out of business, so if you look them up, you're probably not going to find any, and if you do, send me a link because I want more. They're like basically a slipper that goes over top of your boot, but not as big as like the Arctic Shield ones. They're not bulky at all. And then I just slide a body warmer in the top of each of those, and that keeps my feet warm all day long. So that's what I got. Those are the questions that I had as far as the pre-rut. And just to kind of leave this one here, one thing I would say is, this is the time of year to be in the tree. Don't overthink it. Don't go into, and I'm saying this to myself to listen, but use what you've learned in your scouting or in your previous knowledge to be confident in your setups. Give it time, be patient and do what you need to do to get it done. Don't stress yourself out. It's much easier said than done, but you got to be confident in it and go into your places just hoping for the best. And if things aren't working out the way and you think that you've given it the ample amount of time, then, do something different. But it is our favorite time of year as whitetail hunters, and it's going to be a grind. It's the time where you got to lay it all out there, put as much time in the woods as you possibly can, and hopefully come out successful. So I wish everyone luck here. Hopefully by the next time I'm doing an episode, got a buck down. I don't know. I said this before my last elk hunt and the caribou hunt, and it worked out. So I'm just going to say that there now and hope for the best. But anyways, I was going to say I had the Mountain Bucks Blaze orange hats up on the website, but those sold out in a couple days. So I don't have any of those up there, but I got a bunch of apparel and everything on the website if you want to check that out and want to help support the podcast here. Bunch of filming going on. Finally going to do some whitetail filming to be able to show up on the YouTube channel. So looking forward to doing that. And lastly, the guys from the hunting public were in this past week, and got to hang out with them a little bit. Got to meet Dan Infault and the crew there, and they just were really, really cool. And I can't wait to get to see the videos from their time here. It's pretty cool to get to see them. Just like I said, great group of guys, hard workers, and really can adapt well to any situation. But anyways, good luck, take care, and we'll see you next one.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of East Meets West Hunt with your host, Beau Martonik. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit eastmeetswesthunt.com, Facebook at East Meets West Outdoors, and Instagram at East Meets West Hunt. If you enjoyed today's episode, please review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.